County, July the 13th at 7 o'clock.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes. We'll have a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Where's the flag?
Supposed to be over there.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
I second.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
All right, I make a motion that we certify the matters discussed in closed session pursuant to Personnel Section 2.2-3711A pertaining to discussion, considerations, or interviews of prospective candidates for school board employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board.
I second that motion.
Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Bryant?
Yes. We do have those. How many? Okay. Do we have any citizen comments on matters not below?
We do not.
Okay. So you can do that. Make a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second that motion.
Mrs. Henry? Yes. Mr. Broderick?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Bryant?
Yes. Move on to informational items. And if we can have Ms. Miller, the financials up first. I can't hear. Speak up a little bit.
Good evening, school board members. Dr. Huber, you have been presented with the monthly financial report for the month ended June 30, 2026, where operating expenditures for June were $4,873,054.54. With this, you have been provided with a local match, which we did balance with the treasurer's office. I would like to make a note that we do have at the end of this fiscal year a remaining local match balance of $697,715.47. So that balance should cover any adjustments that the auditors are going to be making when they conclude their audit or any accrued expenses. If you have any questions, I'll be
Yep.
happy to answer. Yes, sir.
Underneath facilities, facility. Yes, facilities, you have 0% used. My calculation has it as 91.24, but the overall calculation is correct. Was that just a formula error?
Yes, I would imagine it is. I'm trying to track you there. facilities.
That is a. full
Yes,
item.
yes, yes,
Yep.
I see.
Okay. Now, my next question, I think you've already alluded to, if we're at 99.23 at the end of June, do you have any expectations of any large expenditures coming back, being accrued back?
I do have, obviously, there's always accrued expenses back. I'm looking right now, a couple $100,000. That's not out of the ordinary.
Correct.
What I'm hoping is that what is going to be reversed from the prior year is about the same as what we're going to, have going into it. So we don't really have a discrepancy there. But yes, right now we're already at about 200,000, I'd say, for FY '26.
And right now, we're showing 697,000, roughly 698.
Right.
That's where we are now?
But you have to remember that that's a net. So we're going to reverse last year's. Anything that the auditors booked for FY '25's accrued expenses will be reversed out.
Yeah.
And then anything new is going to be added in. So it could increase it, it could decrease it. So those audit adjustments, we're looking at a net.
Yeah, but
Same
we're not
thing for revenue.
expecting any expenditures to come back to absorb all of that. Now,
No.
that figure does not also include our sales tax that yet to come in, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So we do have a larger cushion.
It seems that we have this is a larger cushion than what we have in the past several years needed.
Right.
Now, this being my first full year, I
It can be a surprise.
yes, but I'm surely hoping not. History has shown that it has not been that much.
Now,
That's a significant amount. If we need to reserve that kind of money every year out of our budget for accruals,
Then we're in problem.
that's significant.
Yeah. Now, my last question is, it just fell out of my head. I'll think of it. Oh, with this, the 698, roughly, approximately, is that total fully now out of what's left from the I don't want to say repayment, but the shortfall that we were in? So we're out of the shortfall.
Is that a balance? Are you asking, is that part of that balance that they gave the Board of Supervisors allocated?
No, I'm asking, are we out of the shortfall that we've been in for the last 2 years with that balance?
Are we out of the shortfall?
We've been in a deficit.
Yes, that should cover us, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That amount should be more than enough from what I'm seeing and from what I'm estimating and from what history has shown to cover those adjustments, which have thrown us over the past several years.
Okay, so
Yes.
we'll start the new year
Yes,
clean.
we are starting already clean. Yes.
Yes.
We're starting off clean.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
I have none.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Huber,
Yes, it will be me.
all right, Dr. Huber for facility update, please.
Just wait for the presentation to load. All right, I can go into present. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, members of the public, and those watching at home. This evening, I am presenting a overview of our long-term facility planning, which will cover the topics of enrollment, facilities, finances, and future plans for the school division. As we look at the topics that are pertinent to this specific item, there's mainly 4 items on our agenda this evening. Identifying the challenges. So those challenges are, as many are aware, declining enrollment, aging facilities, and budget limitations, which we'll cover in depth with several data points that are important for this discussion to continue. We'll also look at proposed solutions. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is not for action. It is for information, solely to provide the board and the public the opportunity to understand the data, understand the important items of conversation, and help us to continue to move forward for the best interest of our students and our families. Look at the impact considerations as well for community impact, student impact, and staff. And finally, I look to present just next steps for you on potential timelines and process. So before we begin to discuss identified challenges, I certainly want to recognize the fact that anytime we discuss budget, we discuss the potential consolidation of schools and the challenges that that poses. That's an emotional topic on many levels, and I want to just recognize that right off of the bat for everyone in the audience, in the public, and our board, that we understand that, and we want to simply present information this evening to provide facts and figures to help us as we move forward as a team to make further considerations and decisions down the road. So as many are aware, and was presented at our last meeting in open session in our joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, we have continued a year-long process with RRMM, our architects, who were hired to do a master plan for the division. It's a 25-year plan looking out to see our challenges, to understand our demographics, our needs, our adequacy for students across Page County, while also looking and providing suggestions on how we can best maximize our tax dollars and maximize the opportunities that we provide to students. So just as an update for the board and the public, we are in that phase of May to July 2026, where we are finalizing that macro level concept design, and that document will be prepared for the board and the public early fall in September. So just to highlight some of the challenges, again, that we're facing as a division, and one of them is looking at enrollment trends. And so you can see the bullet points there in the top right around enrollment decreasing by 15% over the last 10 years. That's across the school division. Birth counts declining, and projections showing a decrease of 8% over the next 10 years. So there is no indications in terms of our school division, in terms of enrollment and ADM, that we have more students coming into our school system. In fact, we have a very dramatic decline projected over the next 10 years, and I'll talk more about that here in future slides.
Dr. Huber,
Yes.
can you tell us what ADM is?
Sure. So ADM is the average daily membership that determines funding for all of our public schools in Virginia, and it's one of the very important things that we use from a budgetary standpoint. And so thank you for that question. And if you can look back to 2011, you can see our average daily membership just under 3,500 students, and where it is today at 2,775. And so it's important to look at this graphic to understand the financial impact that has as we continue to operate in a very similar design that we did in 2011 and 2012. And you can see that compared to that year, we are losing almost $7 million in ADM every year if we look back to how our budget was funded in 2011, 2012. If you were to project that out in alignment with our master plan over 25 years from now forward, that's $173 million. And that's a huge barrier for us as a school division, as a community, as we look at not just facilities, but educational quality, educational adequacy across Page County. And it's something very, very important, I believe, for our board and our public to understand as we look at making the best decisions as we move forward. Just to dive in a little bit further, it is important to look at what we call our PPE, per pupil expenditures. And this is all data that is publicly available on the Department of Education. People are welcome to to go and look at that and access that information. And you can see our per pupil expenditure in our region, and we just picked a handful of divisions as a comparison, like size or bordering counties. In 2011, 2012, we were only higher than Warren County in per pupil expenditure. And we're the second highest now as of the last year this data was collected. So what this means in short is we are spending a significant amount of money per student. So the investment in education is real in Page County, which is fantastic. That's a thing we should be very proud of, that we have that high per pupil expenditure, but it does paint the picture of how our funds are being spread out widely across our division as we operate schools that are well under our capacity. If we look at class sizes, that's another indicator that's important. And you can see again, as we compare to those same divisions, just for comparison purposes, we had the second lowest teacher per pupil ratio for our elementary or grades K through 7, only to Greene County by a very marginal difference, which means our class sizes are extremely small. Again, a fantastic indicator of the investment in education in our division, but also a sign that we are spreading our talent pool very wide and very thin as we look to provide access and adequacy across the school division. Moving forward, same data points, but just looking at secondary, so grades 8 through 12. And you can see just a historical overview of class sizes. And again, we're that light blue marker there on the left. And you can see our class size is just over 10 students per teacher in 2011, 2012, and now right under. And so what these numbers mean that's really important is, and how they're calculated, is it takes all of our full-time teachers, so they can be licensed or unlicensed, and the number of students in those grade levels, and you divide the number of students by the number of staff, and that's how those numbers come out to. So you may look at that and say, well, my child's in a class of 25. Very true. That is certainly the case, but it also, this data point looks across the division at all teachers, at all students, and that's how those numbers are calculated. Again, and they're calculated the same whether you're in Page County, Rockingham, Rappahannock, Greene, what have you. So if we look and continue to talk about facilities costs, which is part of the RRMM study, another data point to review that's important in the conversation is our capital outlay required by school. The way this number is calculated is, as you know, as a board and the public, much of our capital needs have been deferred over time, meaning we have items in our capital plan, anything from replacing a floor to a roofing issue to HVAC to a fire alarm panel, etc. And those are deferred costs over the last 5 years by school and by student. So first we're looking at a division-wide review of facilities. You can see Page County Middle School being the highest, Luray Middle School and Springfield Elementary as well, with significant needs at other schools that are continued capital outlay needs that are being deferred year after year after year. Moving forward, if you look at facility and capital outlay costs per student, this is just another way to look at that data. So you're taking that total capital outlay requirement that's been deferred over 5 years, you're dividing that essentially by the enrollment at that school. And again, you can see the two greatest areas of need are Page Middle and Springfield. Moving forward, this is a different way to look at the considerations and the challenges. And this is important and cannot be stressed enough on when we talk about our talent pool and when we talk about the teacher shortage that impacts not just Page County public schools, but the Commonwealth as a whole, the nation as a whole. We know that hiring and retaining high-quality educators for our students is a challenge. It continues to be a challenge. What makes this even more challenging is when you take the properly licensed and endorsed teachers that we have in the school division and you spread them out very thin, right, across the division. And I think this chart kind of summarizes that for you as a board and for the public to show in 2015, 2016, what that number looked like, right? And it's at kind of the 97% range, which is really where it should be. That's a true indicator of the experience that our children are getting in the classrooms. And you watch that decline over time to right now, we're under 85% of our staff being properly licensed and endorsed. And so what that means from an adequacy standpoint is in educational quality is that we have many students who will go K through 12 in our school division and spend a lot of their time with a teacher that is not licensed and not endorsed in the subject they're teaching or the grade level that we have them in. And while we are grateful for everyone that provides an education to our students, we also want to make sure that every teacher is properly licensed and endorsed in their area. That is a true indicator of the quality of instruction that our kids receive. Moving forward, another component of our challenges are boundary waivers. As you can recall from our agenda, this was an area that we felt we needed to include. You can see that it's very difficult as a division to have this kind of movement across boundaries. And so this data point just shows you by grade level, just at our elementary schools, which is where the primary, waiver requests come from for childcare or whatever it might be. And you can see the amount of fluctuation that occurs across the division, primarily in Luray Elementary School and Springfield Elementary School, where we have students attending those schools that are not actually districted to attend those schools based upon where they live. And so while parents do provide transportation in most of those cases, that does impact our enrollment and ADM fluctuations as you think about those numbers that I showed earlier when you have that many students attending outside of where they reside. So that's the section that I wanted to just cover to start this conversation this evening are some of the challenges. So you heard about budgetary, you heard about ADM, boundaries, class sizes, per pupil expenditure, etc. And that is really a background before we start into the proposed solutions. I'm going to pause for a second to answer any questions before I continue. None?
Well done recap.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Section 2 is proposed solutions. As you can, thank you. All good. As you can recall as well, this is a repeat slide that's been presented publicly since kind of the middle of the year in 2026, which talks about the options for consideration. And these are options that were narrowed down from our facility study committee. That was a group of teachers and staff and leaders from across the division that participated in narrowing down, I believe, 19 options at one point to the options that you see here. And one of the tasks for our architects was to take these options and start talking to us about costs and what this would look like and how this would impact our community. So we're going to not touch on all of them because that's the presentation that you received at your last meeting, but we are going to focus on two that are the most pressing in terms of options available to address our budget concerns. As was discussed earlier in Ms. Miller's presentation, it is a challenging time for us as a division. When our ADM continues to drop in the manner that it is, we continue to try to reduce our personnel footprint, and we've we've done that. But at some point, we do have to discuss very candidly with each other as a community what else we can do in terms of our budget and in terms of our spending that applies to all of our schools and all of our children, and we all have a role in that. So if we want to take a look at these options, we'll talk about the options that were presented last meeting, 2A, which I'll focus on more here in a minute, option 3, option 4, and option 5. And you can see total estimated cost for each of those options over time. Remember, this is a 20 to 25-year lookout. So this was the information that Mr. Phillips presented last time. And you can see the yearly cost for annual estimated expenditures as well as overall cost. So if you go from 2A at 106 million over that time span, all the way to option 5, which is $207 million. So we'll talk about briefly a couple of options, which I'm calling option 1 for this. So sorry to be confusing, but option 1, which I believe is the least disruptive, to more of option 2A that you heard last meeting. So immediate needs that should be addressed. We know that we have level or decreased ADM, which is decreased state funding. We've experienced that, as you can recall, through this budget process this past year, where you may recall FY26 was built off of 2,830 students, and we are at 2,775. And that's approximately $9,000 to $10,000 per student decrease just in that 1 year. Looking at mounting facility cost and capital improvement needs, I do want to say, and I would be remiss if I did not, how much our maintenance team and our facilities team and operations team are doing a fantastic job of taking care of our schools and keeping them running. But there are things that when a building is extremely old or outdated in terms of infrastructure, there are mounting facility costs and CIP needs that have to be addressed. And as I mentioned earlier, ongoing challenges to recruit and retain qualified staff. So if we want to begin to talk about building capacity, we'll start with our elementary schools, which is the big area of focus. And we talk about what can our buildings in their current state accommodate. So you can see the capacity, and this is not new information, you've seen this before, of each school, our current enrollment, percent utilization, and then projecting out to 2030, 2031, and 10 years to 2035, 36. And you can see current utilization at Springfield and Stanley is in the 75% range, Shenandoah and Luray being at 100 or just over. And then if you project out 10 years, you'll see the utilization down across those schools down to 72 and 94, 77 and 92%. These are our middle and high schools, which you can see without going into great detail, underutilized in terms of enrollment and capacity. Our middle and high schools, both, particularly our high schools, have been built to withstand and accommodate many more kids than we have at this time. So we'll talk a little bit about how that can help here in the future as we move forward. So boundary adjustments. So one of the things that's part of this discussion as we look at finances, ADM, and enrollment is to begin to think about how do we best redraw or redistrict our schools to create 2 zones instead of 4 zones for our elementary school students. What decisions might this require? We can consolidate to 2 or 3 in 1 year. So that's something for the board to discuss and the community to discuss. Look at which grade levels are served by which physical building, and how do we think about that maybe differently than we have in the past. A cost savings analysis, what the impacts are on family in terms of either school changes, boundary changes, transportation, all of those sorts of things. But most important, educational quality. And we've talked about that throughout this presentation, and that continues to be the priority for our students as we move forward. So as we talk about this, we look at a couple of options, and these are proposals, things to consider, things to discuss. The least disruptive option, which I'm calling option 1 for the sake of this presentation, is a consolidation to 3 elementary schools to redraw boundaries, redistrict the division, and eliminate waivers. So all of that data was presented to you in the first section of this presentation, and this is an option to address some of those items. So what does that mean if we do a side-by-side comparison? As we look at the 26-27 school year, there are no changes. That's the school year that we are currently entering, and that's a year of investigation, planning, discussions, and transparent communication. All schools remain as is. We honor waivers per our policy and per that process. In fact, those notifications are already out and being sent out so that our students are not impacted by any changes in waivers. And we halt or freeze our non-urgent capital improvements at the 2 schools under question, Shenandoah and Springfield. If you look at why those schools were selected, if you look at the option 2A model that consolidates to 2 elementary schools, those would be the 2 on the north and south end that would collapse into Stanley and Murray. Boundary readjustments in the 27-28 school year would occur in this plan. Option 1, consolidate to 3 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and 2 high schools. The major changes that you would see would be we would move the 5th grade to our middle schools and 8th grade from the middle schools to the high schools. And so you can think about, well, why might that be? That is where we have our capacity possibilities. As you saw on a couple slides before that, our middle and high schools can accommodate those students with 0 issues in terms of capacity and square footage, and we would eliminate school choice waivers. So there's really 3 things that summarize option 1, least disruptive, boundary readjustments, so redistrict, consolidation, and eliminate waivers. So what might this look like? Again, these are predictions, not in their final state, but predictions of how this might impact our schools and what it may look like. And you can see enrollment, once the boundary lines are redrawn and students are moved, capacity percentage, and grade levels served. So if you look at the 3 elementary schools, we would serve grades pre-K through 4. Our 2 middle school buildings would serve grades 5 through 7, and our high schools would serve grades 8 through 12. All of those at each school would be under capacity with this change. And that's without taking into account declining enrollment over the next 10 years. So if we talk about the financial impact of this, in this least disruptive option 1, these are conservative savings, and they're broken down for simplicity into 3 categories: personnel, capital, and operational. So operational looks at what does it cost to keep a school open per year. You're looking at energy costs, things such as electricity, water, sewer, HVAC, all of those items. That's our operational costs. Our capital costs look at what would it cost in terms of capital improvements for that option. And then personnel. There's personnel savings, and the only personnel we've included in this conservative savings pie chart are really non-classroom teachers. So this is individuals outside of the classroom that you would not duplicate at another school if you were to consolidate or close. An example of a position may be an administrator. It may be a custodian. It may be some of the ancillary positions that are not classroom teachers in this specific case. You're also going to have savings that are not recognized in this chart because they're not predictable. You'll have attrition, you'll have other things, retirements, and other opportunities, but to be conservative and and safe in terms of a projection. That's where we're at in terms of option 1 year cost savings at just over $1 million. A more comprehensive approach is option 2 for the sake of this presentation, and this will look very familiar to you because it aligns with 2A from RRMM. So these slides will be repetitive based upon what you received at our last meeting, but I do have recognized cost savings just to compare the two options. Again, this year, all schools remain as is, waivers are honored, and 0 non-urgent capital improvements at Shenandoah and Springfield. So nothing changes. Again, we use this as fact-finding, development, communication, and transparency during this year. And then looking at the 27-28 school year, again, redistricting with boundary adjustments, and we consolidate not to 3, but to 2 elementary schools, 2 middle and 2 high. Here you have to do a grade level adjustment as compared to the prior option with moving 4th grades to the middle school locations, and then again, 8th grades moving up into the high school, and again, eliminating school choice waivers. So again, you've seen this slide before. This is what it would look like. So Springfield and Shenandoah would merge. Schools that are currently over capacity in this move, but the population is projected to decline. So you'll see right off the sheet, Luray would be at 92% utilization, Stanley at 114. However, those numbers again are projected to decrease over the next 10 years where those buildings would be under. You can look here at the middle school utilization, again, well under capacity at both middle schools. And lastly, here, no changes, so all of those boundaries would stay the same once they're redrawn into the feeder patterns, and you would look that our utilization still, even with moving students, would be 77% and 85% with this option. Capacity and enrollment predictions for this option, what would it look like? So again, this is the same chart, comparing the same items. Your grade level served would be pre-K 3 at the 2 elementary schools, 4 through 7 at both middle schools, and 8 through 12 at our high schools, and our capacity as stated earlier. And again, comparing conservative savings. So again, this is a conservative number at $4,643,000 per year. Operationally, personnel, obviously, you're essentially doubling that number that you saw from the last slide, as well as capital. And remember, that capital is only deferred, not looking out, right? And so when we look at this number, we have to recognize that that capital outlay fluctuates, right? Depending upon which school and which year and which replacement cycle we're on for various capital outlay items. That is only deferred capital for those 2 schools, not 20-year capital, not 10-year capital. Impact considerations. Questions to consider that I think are very important. This is not all-encompassing, but certainly items that we need to look at as a team and as a community. Effective and timely two-way communication is key. I think that starting this process early, having these discussions, having the comments and the public here is fantastic. I'm excited to see the folks that we have in attendance, and I think that's important that we continue that and make sure that that is two-way communication and that we have avenues in place so that everyone can have their opinions and thoughts and concerns shared as we move through the process. Making sure that through the plan, whatever that may be, that we have flexibility. So we need to understand that there are human circumstances that may not fit in a specific model, and enrollment increases or decreases that are not predictable. There's also capital needs that are not predictable. Things can break or fail that need to be addressed. And that can be from a safety perspective or an educational quality perspective that we need to take a look at. Conservative cost savings, communication, again, as you saw in those two pie charts, the purpose of that is to give a conservative cost savings and not to overinflate that number. There's plenty of research that shows that sometimes those numbers can be inflated, and we did not want to do that in our presentation this evening. So we wanted to give those conservative cost numbers and continue that communication around that. And then again, flexibility and boundary adjustments and transportation. So potential timeline and process as we wrap up the informational part of this presentation. We would like to, as a school division, and I would like to lead this team through a task force around this topic to really look at all of the factors to be considered, the data points that we shared, to make sure that task force is representative of parents, of staff members, of leaders, and to make sure that everyone has a voice at the table. So I would like to propose that as a next step this summer to go ahead and get that started, to continue our community engagement throughout the fall, and hopefully we would be able to come back and have a board decision January of 27, and then execute whatever plans the board may decide for the next school year. We want to be very careful, thoughtful, and thorough with our process moving forward. So, thank you for your time. Those in the audience and those watching at home, thank you as well for your engagement, and I'm happy to answer questions from the board at this time.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
Several, actually. In the two proposals, option 1 and option 2, if the board moves forward with that, that's, especially option 2, that's disruption to 4th and 5th grade moving. That's also disruptive to 8th grade moving, and it encompasses all schools. My concern is if we move forward as a division of building new schools or refabbing some that we have, depending on the option that gets approved, that's a lot of moving of students and grade levels in the next 4 to 5 years. Because we're moving them next year, then we're going to move them again when a new school is built or refab, depending on the option. That's a lot of movement. I think if we're looking at what's best for the children, the students, if we have to put the pressure on a move, it's to be moved to a new building or to a renovated building, and that be one move. I think moving 2 or 3 times is going to be very disruptive not only to students but also to staff. The other issue that I see is there is significant savings. I get that. But at what cost does it come to at the community and to our students? The other issue I have is with the waivers being done away with. As I've stated before, in this community, we pay taxes no matter where you live for all schools. And if a parent needs to take a child that is in District 5, which is Shenandoah, down to Springfield because they work in Front Royal, because that's where their family member or their child care is, doing away with that waiver is going to do a disservice not only to the student, but also to that family. So I have an issue with doing away with the waivers. We pay taxes on all the buildings, not just the one that they're in. So that's my position. That will always be my position moving forward. So my question is, I know we have some tough decisions, and I know this was brought to us from the Board of Supervisors to consider. But it's not their job to always consider the students in our community. I think we need to look at this very carefully and very closely as a community moving forward of what we're planning on doing, not just in next year, but then with whatever we're doing with another move down the road. I think we have to look at the impact on students, not just on moving from one school from one grade level to another. That's just my opinion. And that's as an advocate for students and child development, that much moving, that much stress, not only for the student, but for the family. So I think we need to also, as a board, take all of that into weight when we're making decisions on this topic.
Thank you.
Dr. Huber, one question I have is you look at, let's just use option 2, for example, where we're talking about pre-K 3 in one school, 4 through 7 in one school, and 8 through 12 in one school. Are there other schools in the Commonwealth that are mirroring that same model?
There are. There are models that certainly, if we were to move forward or have interest even in that option, we would want to visit, talk with teachers, first and foremost, leaders in the building, and really put our eyes on what that might look like. It is certainly different. But yes, there are other models to look at, certainly.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
I'm gonna pick on Mr. Breeden for a moment. I like what you've said. I do think there's a lot inside of the waivers, for example. And I know we as a board and the community involved as well will not make immediate decisions. We have to take the data, as you've mentioned, the multiple moves of children, right? That is going to be impactful. I think our job as well is not, kids are resilient. Kids are more resilient than us as adults. So I would say that as we consider those things, we can focus on making one decision, but we still need to be cautious of our budget. We're coming out of a really difficult spot with negative deficit budgets the last few years. So yes, I agree with what he's saying of trying to lessen the impacts for our students. But I would want us to be cautious as well of holistically looking at it. And even if that means we need to make 2 moves, we do so if it's in the right interest of our students and our educators. So that would be my comment as well as we look at these future states. The waivers, I'd really like to talk to the transportation team on that because
Okay.
I agree. I think the waivers are important to our community. I'm curious if there's a way to do it differently, not so much of having the student go to a different school, but we know the transportation currently, for example, Luray Middle School is kind of a hub, right? The high schoolers come there and get on a different bus. The elementary schoolers come there and get on a different bus. Perhaps that is a way to still have the needs met by the parents of getting them to a different area.
Yep.
So I think maybe we just look at waivers a little differently.
Okay.
That would be my comments for now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to comment on the waiver also. The plans indicate in some cases elimination of waivers. And I think that's going to have to be evaluated once a new structure is set up and we start working it. For example, there's a waiver to bring them into Springfield if you're headed to DC. Well, if the school's closed, there's got to be a change anyway. So I think we need to take a look at what impacts there are before we could say, oh, can't ever do that.
Sure.
Common sense should rule the day.
Thank you.
Anyone else? You're all good? All right, thank you for that. And this will be available for the public to go back and to review that because it's a lot of information. So thank you for putting that together. We'll move on to policy with Ms. Clark.
Good evening, Board. Before you this evening, you have, for the first time in a long time, a very small group of policies to be reviewed. So there are 3 on the table. They were up for our normal review cycle with no revisions or changes from the VSBA or through our review process either. I'll take any questions if you have any.
I have a question. Let me put that up. The FA. Oh, clicked on the next one that you were on. Is that one still labeled as VSBA or is that labeled as PCPS?
It is a combination thereof. At board direction in previous cycles, we have updated it and have minor wording changes. So we did not make any revisions.
Okay, so that's still set from, basically from 21 when we did the Mr. Comer
Yes, sir.
Stadium.
Yes.
Okay.
Any others? Thank you.
Good evening, board members. Ms. Clark and I come to you this evening to present the PCPS Student Handbook and Code of Conduct updates for the upcoming school year. As you'll see at the list provided, most of our updates are procedural in nature. They include revised policies and just general updated information for the new school year.
Okay. Last year, Ms. Heichman, got that right this time? Ms. Heichman and myself went through and we did some major renovations, or I say Ms. Heichman did some great work on the handbook and reformatting it. We wanted to make the new board members aware that there are sections in the handbook that just describe the basic sections of our policies and procedures. So the first section is about PCPS. That's where people can go to find their contact information, school board information, and so forth. General information notifications are the annual notifications we have to provide every year to parents. So they are listed there. They come from VSBA and other places, and are the new ones that we just approved at the last board meeting are in there as well. Student learning section is our instructional programs, our SPED programs, and other items that you can go in there and learn about what we're offering and so forth. And it also links you into the program of studies. Student health, safety, and support services, that just talks about, transportation, transportation, our nursing services and so forth. So just another place for you to look at. And then family engagement and communications allows you to figure out who to contact, what we're involving, and what events and so forth we're putting out there. Code of conduct then is our disciplinary action, and that is where our interventions and response mechanisms come into play for discipline. In this school year update, we did update your school year calendar, the division staff, and your board information, so it is up to date for this round. We've also noted new policies to reflect what's been approved, changed, or removed. We did update graphics and links such as the secondary program of studies. There's some VHSL information in there that we updated. And then we've also, as a result of policy, added a student health and safety resource for families.
As Ms. Clark noted, we're required by policy KPA to notify parents of safe storage of prescription drugs and firearms. And there are specific times during the school year that we'll have to provide this information to parents. So that now there's an easy handout that schools can provide. It will also be available on our website. And it covers things such as student safety, limiting access, how to recognize and respond to your child, and then some local resources. If you have any questions, we'll do our best to answer them.
I have a question. Is the student handbook going to be online?
Yes.
Okay.
Any others?
I just have another question. Where is it going to be located online?
Sure. Right now, it's under the student and family section under the menu.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. At this time, we will move to public comments on the informational agenda. And should I go ahead and read this before? Okay. The Page County School Board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment during a meeting. All comments should address a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board would not hear public comment that involves an individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would violate applicable confidentiality requirements. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, nor to the superintendent, a staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium.
We have Caitlin LaFountain first.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Caitlin LaFountain. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. My name is Caitlin LaFountain, and I am the proud mother of 2 children who attend Springfield Elementary School. Springfield is more than just a school to my family. It is part of our history. I attended Springfield as a child, and so did my siblings. When my husband and I chose where to raise our family, we intentionally stayed in this district because we wanted our children to have the same incredible experience that shaped my childhood. This isn't just another school building to us. It's where generations of my family have learned, grown, and built lifelong memories. This issue is deeply personal. My oldest daughter, Lily, just completed kindergarten at Springfield. Multiple students in her class earned perfect scores on their kindergarten standardized assessments. That doesn't happen by accident. It is the result of exceptional teachers, dedicated staff, involved parents, and a school culture that truly puts students first. Springfield has built a reputation for academic excellence, and I believe that deserves to be recognized as you consider its future. Over the past several days, I took the time to carefully read through the facilities master plan. I understand that the board is faced with difficult decisions, and I recognize that declining enrollment presents real challenges for our school division. The report shows enrollment has declined over the past decade and is projected to continue declining over the next 10 years. However, what stood out to me the most was that this is a countywide issue, not a Springfield issue. The report also shows that elementary schools across the division are expected to have even more available capacity in the years ahead. What concerns me most is that I still haven't seen a clear explanation as to why closing Springfield is the best solution. The proposal to close Springfield and Shenandoah would immediately place Stanley Elementary at approximately 114% capacity, while relying on projected enrollment declines years into the future to eventually relieve that overcrowding. As a parent, I have to ask, why would we knowingly overcrowd schools today based on projections that may or may not happen years from now? How does that improve the educational experience for our children? What happens if those projections don't materialize? Another thing that stood out to me is that nowhere in the master plan does it state that Springfield is unsafe or beyond repair. The report discusses aging facilities, HVAC systems, accessibility improvements, and security upgrades as needs across the entire school division, not just at Springfield. If Springfield is not uniquely facing these challenges, then I believe our community deserves a transparent explanation as to why our school has been singled out for closure.
Thank you.
Stella Smith.
I'm sitting in the front, and I don't know, I could not hear you all. I tried to get your attention to tell you I couldn't hear, but I don't know, maybe they could and I couldn't. I don't know if that's the case, and if you can even hear me. You can?
We can hear you.
Okay,
Clear.
I could not hear you that well, even sitting in the front. Yeah, and it's a lot to take in, what you gave us this evening. And I think there are a lot of questions that I would have, and I'm sure other people would have too, about that process that you're going through and some of the things in it. I think it should be a decision of the taxpayers in Page County to decide this. We're the ones and our children that are going to be paying the taxes. And it should be that. And I will just say, I went to Springfield, my children went to Springfield, my grandchildren, and I worked there for 30 years. And it is a great school. And I just worry about you not giving us a choice with that eliminating the decision whether you want to go to Springfield if you live in Luray or vice versa. And also, I just think that, you know, it's a family at Springfield. It's not just a school, it's a family. And I hope that, you know, you will really, I know you will take that into consideration and everything. And it's just a great team there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Huffman.
Good afternoon, members of the board. As a former Springfield Cardinal, I believe it is very important to preserve the values and morals of that school. I'm a third generation Springfield Cardinal. My grandparents, my dad, and myself. My kids did not get the opportunity to go there. I couldn't drive them there every day, but my grandson will. And he, and hopefully many more of my grandchildren. So to have this school taken away from us, I think is just a really, really bad idea. But I believe in today's society it's more important than ever to preserve those values and morals that Springfield holds. The friendships held by the teachers and fellow students is one of my greatest treasures, and that is one of them right there. I can remember her very vividly. I'm 55, and I remember every day that lady being there. And furthermore, most of the teachers that were there came to our class at, we left 7th grade to go to 8th grade in high school, to our graduation. That's how close we were. Technology is a huge thing. I'm very aware of that. But the core values and the one on education that you receive is definitely something you cannot Google. Bigger is not always better. And I hope you all will take that into consideration. One thing I did see, didn't write it down, but I was trying to take all this in tonight. And if I remember correctly, the school that had the most waivers to go there was Springfield. There is a reason for that. It's not just transportation or I'm living in Shenandoah or wherever. It's a great school. It's one of the best schools in the county. And for you all to take that away, that's detrimental. And it's not, also, you're talking about transportation, and I was trying to read up there like 21 minutes to here or whatever it was. It's not, as far as I know and what I've understood from one of our neighbors being a school bus driver, you all are having extreme transportation issues, even to get bus drivers. And for these parents that, like you said, live out of town and go to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, how are they supposed to get their kids to these schools? And another thing that really comes to mind is the decrease in the school. A lot of things are going on where a lot of people are going to homeschooling because of the bigger classrooms and the kids are not getting the one-on-one. But at Springfield, you do get one-on-one. And it's an excellent, excellent school. So please take that into consideration and not take that away from our community.
Pamela Boyd.
After reviewing the options being considered for the future of Page County Public Schools, I strongly believe option 2, deferred maintenance plus renovations, is the most reasonable path forward for our students, families, staff, and taxpayers. Closure of Springfield Elementary is a cause for many concern, one being education quality. Why would the county close a school with some of the greatest SOL scores in the county, a school that consistently contributes to the academic success of our division, at a time when academic achievement should be one of our highest priorities? Closing a high-performing school is difficult to justify. Also question the logic of closing existing elementary schools while investing significant resources into renovating and expanding high schools built less than 20 years ago, and then converting aging middle schools, which have always served older students, into elementary schools. Our elementary schools were specifically built for our county's youngest children and have served them for decades. Their size, layout, playgrounds, and sense of community provide something uniquely valuable for young students. Trying to recreate that environment in an aging building designed for middle schoolers seems far less reasonable than investing in and renovating the elementary schools we already have. Newer and bigger does not automatically mean better. Transportation is another serious concern. Closing Springfield Elementary would mean longer bus rides for some of our younger children and longer travel times for family in Rileyville and Shenandoah. I am also concerned about the impact consolidation could cause on class sizes. When schools are merged, will our students be placed in larger classrooms with less individual attention from teachers? Before closing successful schools and combining student populations, we deserve clear answers about exactly how many students will be in each classroom and whether adequate staffing will be guaranteed. We should not call something a cost-saving measure if the savings comes at the expense of the quality of our education. The public also deserves complete transparency about what the proposed high school renovations and expansions actually include. There have been community discussion that some could involve athletic fields or sports facilities. If that is the case, we need a serious conversation about priorities. Athletics are valuable, but it would be difficult to justify significant spending on athletic improvements while telling families we cannot afford elementary schools. Before closing any school, the public also deserves a detailed accounting of what every proposed renovation includes and what it will cost, including an overabundance of central office positions and any efforts towards saving money that is possible. If this is truly about financial necessity, then every dollar in every proposed project should be scrutinized accordingly. I understand our facilities have needs and difficult financial decisions must be made, but we should not solve years of deferred maintenance and budget challenges by rushing to close successful community schools and placing the burden on our children and our families. Option 2 addresses critical maintenance and renovations while preserving all 9 schools. Before we close schools and make decisions that cannot be easily undone, we should be certain every responsible alternative has been fully explored.
John Senchik.
Good evening. My name's John Sinsich. I just moved here 2 days short of a month ago. While Luray while I'm new to Luray is not new to me. I've been visiting Luray for probably about 15 years through bike races, triathlons, and just visiting to be in the beautiful mountains. My family has also, some of my family decided to move here in 2020 and 2021, and obviously we decided to move here to be closer to our family. And as we were house shopping, talking with our realtor, every single person that was working in a coffee shop or a restaurant, and talking to them and telling them we were looking to move here. And we moved here, and I have twin boys who will be going to Springfield next year in first grade. Everyone said, make sure your child goes to Springfield. It's the best school here. And so that's what we did. We found a spot, make sure that we were in Springfield. And then yesterday, I got a text message from my sister who lives in town, who has a daughter, her niece goes to Luray Elementary, and she said, they're talking about closing Springfield. And I was just flabbergasted. It just unfathomable to me. And, one of the things that I think is a testament, as everything people have said here about how wonderful Springfield is. And, one thing that was up there is about 47 waivers. I think this goes to a testament to show what a great school it is. And knowing what a great school it is and how excited I am to send my kids there, I'm not really looking forward to them not being able to go there and to close one of the best schools in town. I also don't think that fourth graders should be with seventh graders. That's too big of an age gap. They don't get along that way. There's also a comment on resiliency. Children may be resilient, but stability is better than resiliency in children. So. I can't say anything more than the people that have lived here for much longer than me have to say, but that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Rebecca Sechrist.
Good evening. I think we need to look at this issue from a different perspective, because the future of our schools is not solely the responsibility of the school board. Our schools, our students, and public education are the responsibility of this entire community, and that includes our county leadership.
Right now, we're discussing closing schools as a solution of declining enrollment and financial challenges, but I think we need to ask a much bigger question. What are we doing as a county to address the reasons families aren't coming here, staying here, and raising their children here? Tourism is important to Page County. Short-term rentals, it's a place in our economy. But when more and more homes become short-term rentals and are priced beyond what working families can afford, we lose something important: permanent residencies. A house can still generate real estate tax revenue without a family living in it, but an empty house doesn't enroll a child into a school. It doesn't have a family buying groceries every week, paying for childcare, joining a church, coaching Little League, volunteering in classrooms, or spending a paycheck throughout our community year-round. We cannot continue talking about declining school enrollment without also talking about affordable housing, responsible growth, economic development, and creating opportunities for young families to actually build a life here. If we want stronger schools, we need families. If we want families, we need housing that they can afford, jobs they can build a future on, and a county that makes long-term residents a priority. Closing schools may reduce expenses on paper, but it does not solve the underlying problem. In fact, we should be asking whether or not closing community schools makes Page County more attractive or less to the very families we desperately need. The school board cannot solve this problem alone. This is a countywide issue that requires countywide leadership and long-term solutions. Before we dismantle schools that have served for generations of families, I believe we should be asking what every part of our local government is doing to invest in the future of Page County, not just manage its decline. Because our children deserve more than decisions based on what we have lost. They deserve leaders willing to build towards what this county can become. In conclusion, I'm requesting the Board of Supervisors to hold an open public discussion specifically addressing these proposals and potential school closures. These decisions affect taxpayers' dollars, transportation, infrastructure, and our communities and the future of Page County. The public deserves to hear directly from the elected supervisors about the financial realities we face, the alternatives that have been considered, and their vision for the future of our schools and our county. Thank you.
Whitney McQuillan.
Good evening. As the district considers the possibility of school closures and elementary school consolidations, I would like to appreciate additional clarity regarding the long-term vision for our schools. If a school is closed, what are the district's plans for building and property, and what long-term strategy is placed to address the enrollment declines and the budget challenges with the repeatedly revisiting school closures? Have safety plans and emergency procedures been updated and taken into account for if we increase the student populations in these schools? If the elementary schools are consolidated, how will we, as a district, address the existing maintenance needs within the remaining facilities? I work at Leary Elementary, and I can tell you there are several things that do need to be addressed. Furthermore, when the decision was made 16 years ago to build the 2 new high schools, what data supported that investment? Enrollment decline, and that was discussed during tonight's presentation. How do we know in another 16 years we won't be sitting here again trying to figure out what we're doing with all of these children or less children? We spent a lot of money on these 2 schools, and now we're trying to figure out what to do. So I feel like that's something we need to take into consideration. Thank you.
Brian Ortega.
Good evening, members of the board. I understand the district is facing difficult decisions. But before we ask students and families to absorb the disruption of school consolidation, the proposed decision feels like a surprise to the community. It feels a little bit abrupt. As you navigate these decisions, I believe it's important for you all to let us know how you all are addressing the retention of qualified staff and teachers, how the 10-year enrollment projections that you all spoke about are justifying the consolidation comparison that you all gave us, and with ongoing staff shortages and turnover, how will combining the schools the increased class size improve the learning conditions for the 27-28 school years. The proposed consolidation raises awareness, several concerns. First, placing fifth graders in schools with eighth graders, while they may seem close in age, there's a clear mental difference as far as their learning goes. Second, coming from a large city, my family and I moving here, we've seen how overcrowded class sizes results in reduced individual attention for students and only exacerbates the staff turnover. This decision will also create additional transportation burdens for families that I think needs to be considered. And this decision needs to have family and educator voice. I think it's important that you all survey and ask your communities what they want to see. And while I understand the financial situation schools face, this decision needs to be done with respect and understanding to the community. We've heard that students are resilient here tonight, but schools should not intentionally create disruption to test children's resilience. Schools should be a place where students can learn without needing another disruption. Shortly after COVID, right, schools are still addressing the academic, social, and emotional consequences that we saw from that. And so this just feels like another setback. Before making an irreversible decision, I urge the board to slow this process down, meaningfully engage families and educators, address staff retention, and demonstrate with clear evidence that this consolidation will improve and not simply manage expectations. The educational experience of our children is critically important. Thank you.
Julie Ortega. Julie Ortega. You're good? Okay.
All right, that'll be all. Now we'll move on to the action items, and we'll start with purchases over 10,000, Ms. Miller.
Yes, thank you again. You have been provided with purchase orders over $10,000 this evening. The first four having to do with the network and internet services, a technology funding source. We have Lexia, the learning systems there, an online reading program that we've been using for quite a while now. BusRight, the transportation routing system. We have the Shenandoah County Public Schools tuition, and that is for GovSchool. And lastly, LDMB insurance for pollution liability for tanks. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Last time we looked at this, it was accruals for the future school year. Is that the same? Are all of these for the future year?
These are for this year that we're in. We're in this FY27 right now.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question. The
Yes.
Lexia learning system?
Right.
What is that?
That is our online, it's a reading program that we've used for several years now.
But that doesn't substitute for teaching instructionally the reading concepts?
No, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I have a motion to approve the purchase orders for over $10,000 as presented.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. Bodwick.
Yes.
Mr. Breeden.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Bryant.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we'll move to Dr. Huber.
Yes, so this evening I am bringing to the board approval. This is an annual process where we ask for approval of a superintendent's designee, or two in this case. The purpose of the superintendent's designee is to act in my absence if necessary. That individual also has the ability to sign in terms of financial documents or needs as they arise. Again, this is only used if there were to be an absence on my part that needed to have action. Very rarely used, but it is an annual requirement. I am bringing approval for two individuals this evening, Dr. Johnson and Mrs. Miller as designees.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the designees as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Mrs. Henry,
Yes.
Mr. Broderick,
Yes.
Mr. Breeden,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Bryant.
Yes. All right, we will move to board members' comments. We'll start with you, Mr. Thomas.
All right, well, first and foremost, I want to thank the community for coming out tonight and just voicing your concerns. It's very important that we are able to hear from you guys, but not just in this manner, but all manners related to school systems. So my encouragement to you guys is that I would love to always have to meet at high schools because we have so much involvement from our community in our meetings. So thank you all for coming out tonight, first and foremost. Secondly, I want to thank the support staff at all the schools that are working really hard to get the schools ready for prime time. It's hard to believe, but school is just around the corner. So shout out to the janitors, the custodians, the secretaries, everybody that's working behind the scenes to get us ready for a successful next school year. And then just also to the coaches that are starting to work with our student athletes to get them ready for the school year as well.
I too also want to thank the community for coming out and to those who spoke. And for those who spoke that did not get to complete theirs, please send us that. Please send the board. Each district has a representative. You can send it to any of us. The board will receive it. I personally would like to read the rest of the comment as I will read the ones that were submitted online. It is very important that we hear from the community. It's also very important that the community also show up at the Board of Supervisors. It was their suggestion that we take a look at this and cost-saving measure. So if you want that to be noted, you have to show up at their meeting and express your concerns there as well. We appreciate you showing up here. We want to hear the feedback, but please show up there too, because it is your tax dollars.
So I sit on the board as one of the districts directly impacted by this Springfield discussion. My kids went there. My daughter just graduated from that school and is ready to move into middle school. We also just went through the graduation season, right, where we got to see all these students go back from their senior year into the schools that they went through as younger children. So there is a lot of heart that plays into making these difficult decisions. We talk about heart as well when we come into purchasing a home. Obviously, being in that district, my home is in that area that's impacted by Springfield. And that was one of the things the realtor said. We got to meet the original homeowners, and they said the same thing, that they absolutely love Springfield. These decisions are not going to be easy. We thankfully have some time, and we'll continue to bring this up. It started towards the middle of last year. And we are going to go, you heard the Springfield discussion is not until next school year. So And that's, again, discussion, but these things are going to be things that we want you guys as a community to be involved in. And the Board of Supervisors is involved and will stay involved in. We have time, but that doesn't make these decisions any easier. Again, the heart, we hear about how well the Springfield staff is. I'm interested in our goals as a school system wide. Let's get all of our schools to be that heartfelt. Everybody love the school that they are in that district. So I want us to say that you can see the hesitation. It's not just a building. It is not just a building. There are so many memories in that building. But I would tell you that families move homes as well, right? Growth happens, change happens. That does not make this any easier. My kids, again, went there, and I want them to walk through those hallways again when they're seniors. But just, there are so many sides to this box. It was mentioned, we want you guys as a community to stay with us on this. You guys have expertise that, we all bring expertise to the table, but you guys have different expertise. That's why we want a diverse decision here. So please stay involved. Thank you to those that spoke up today. Reach out to us, as Mr. Breeden said, that's what we're here for. And thank you for being on this journey with us.
Well, I'm Dan Bodwick. I am First District, and they want to close the only school in the First District. I know there's a lot of heart and sentiment in that building, and I know that school does a great job. So continue to work with us. Be present when the Board of Supervisors meets. Their problem is they got a fixed amount of money, and we got to spend it the wisest we can, but there's no monopoly on good ideas, and I suspect there's plenty of good ideas out there. Share them. Help us help you. Thank you for being here.
Very nice. You guys did a great job kind of summing up my thoughts as well. Thank you all. Please stay engaged. These are not enjoyable conversations behind the scenes when we're getting the information or in front of you all. I think that you don't think that your heart is far from ours, because it's not. We understand exactly the passion that was going to come in this room tonight. And that's a beautiful thing about Page County. So we appreciate that, but stay involved, stay engaged. Mr. Maddox Moyer is our student representative from LHS, and you chose a tough night to come, and let's give that guy a round of applause. Thank you, sir. That's where it starts, and we're grateful that he's here to represent his student body, and please just continue to be a part of the conversations. The biggest thing, we are a community, we are a tax base of one. This is impacting one area, but we know that that ripple is felt as we discuss other options too. Please go back and review the slides that Dr. Huber provided. The information that we have gotten, those are study-based. We have paid for demographic studies. The supervisors are also looking into this. One of the speakers was mentioning quite a great list of many of the concerns that I have for our community in the future as well. Unfortunately, the school board cannot address those. We are doing what we can with what we have, and the supervisors have quite a heavy plate that I would not be interested in at all, because they're the ones that are going to have to generate whatever it is that our future is going to need, and how do we sustain, survive, the tax base, the whole 9 yards. And we are trying to be responsible with all of our finances. But thank you all for being here tonight. And I will entertain a meeting to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second. Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Bodwick?
Yes.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Bryant?
Yes.